Have you ever done this before? You see a message from an old friend, and you decide not to reply. Not because you're busy, but because you don't want to continue anymore. No argument, nothing dramatic happened. Just one day, you stopped, and you never went back. Sounds cold, right? But be honest. How many relationships are you quietly letting fade away? No words, no explanation, just slowly disappearing. Especially people from Gen X. They do this a lot. And they do it with a kind of finality that's hard to understand. Most people would call them heartless, but the truth is, they're responding to something most people never see. And if you recognize yourself here, maybe you're not a bad person. Maybe you've just changed in a way that feels a little dangerous. You had someone you were really close to. You talked every day, shared everything, big and small. Then slowly, things shifted. Fewer messages, calls disappeared. No clear conflict, no big fight to end it all, just one day, you realized you stopped talking. And the strangest part? You didn't feel as guilty as you expected. You didn't try to fix it. You didn't even want to explain. Most people would call that cold, or worse, betrayal. But is that really true? Or are we completely misunderstanding this behavior? Why do some people, especially Gen X, cut off long-term relationships so quietly? Is it coldness? Or a psychological response they don't even notice? There's something you may have felt, but never named. You look back at old relationships, people who once matched you perfectly, but now conversation feels forced. You don't think the same. You don't live the same. And you start to feel off. Not because they got worse, not because you got better, just you're no longer the same version. And this is where something silent happens. Your identity is shifting. Over time, we all rebuild ourselves. The way you think, the way you choose, the way you see the world, and most importantly, the way you choose who stays. Gen X feels this deeply. They grew up learning independence early. No one guided them much. No one held their hand for long. So they developed something rare, a very clear internal map. They know who they are, and they also know who they're not anymore. So when a relationship no longer fits, they don't try too hard to fix it. They don't force what has changed. They simply step away. Imagine this. You had a friend who loved going out every weekend. Now, you need quiet. You start saying no, then less. Then you disappear. Not because you hate them, but because you're not that person anymore. And here's a hard truth. Holding on to a misaligned relationship can actually be dishonest. Dishonest to yourself. Dishonest to your own change. These people don't leave because they're cold. They leave because they refuse to live out of alignment. And if this feels familiar, maybe you're doing the same thing. There's something else. Even fewer people notice. You didn't just change who you are. You changed how you process emotions, especially if you're Gen X. You didn't grow up explaining your feelings. No one asked what you were thinking. No one expected you to say everything out loud. You were sad, you handled it alone. You were disappointed, you swallowed it. And over time, your brain learned something clear. Not every feeling needs to be expressed. Not every relationship needs closure. So when a relationship becomes heavy, you feel it fast. Conversations drain you. Interactions feel forced. Replying to messages feels like a task. And this is where your brain switches on. Energy conservation. Instead of arguing, instead of long explanations, instead of trying to end things properly, you choose the lowest cost: silence and withdrawal. Think about it. How many times did you want to explain everything, but then felt it wasn't worth it? Not because you didn't know what to say, but because you didn't want to spend the energy. For you, saying it wouldn't change anything. It would just extend the exhaustion. And this gets misunderstood. People think you're avoiding things, or that you're not mature enough to face them, but in reality, you're managing your energy. You choose peace over a conversation that leads nowhere. You choose to leave instead of staying and burning out. And if you've ever disappeared like that, quietly, without explanation, maybe you're not as cold as they think. Maybe you're protecting something. No one ever taught you to protect your emotional energy. People often believe ending a long-term relationship is selfish, or worse, irresponsible. That if you've been together long enough, you owe it to keep it. But here's what most people miss. Time doesn't automatically create value. It creates familiarity. And those are not the same thing. Some relationships last a long time, but lost their meaning very early. No one leaves because they feel attached to time, to memories, to effort already spent. Psychology calls this the sunk cost. You continue just because you started, not because it still fits. But these people are different. They don't use the past to decide the present. They don't think, we've known each other 10 years, so we must keep this. They ask something simpler. Does this still mean something to me? And if the answer is no, they don't need another reason. This is where something powerful happens. Their value doesn't come from others, not from being needed, not from being held on to. It comes from within, an internal control center, meaning they decide what aligns with their life, without needing approval, without needing understanding, without asking permission. So leaving isn't breaking a relationship, it's preserving themselves. And here's the part people struggle with. Sometimes, the one who leaves silently is the clearest one in the room. No confusion, no dragging things out, no holding on to what already ended inside. They simply act on what they've known for a long time. And if you look back at your own exits, no explanation, no return, maybe you weren't heartless at all. Maybe you just stopped needing others to confirm what you already knew. From the outside, they seem cold, decisive, even a little cruel. But look deeper, and you'll see something else entirely. These are people who know themselves. They know who they are. And more importantly, they know who they're not anymore. They don't live to meet expectations. They don't keep relationships just because they should. They don't stay just because they used to be close. For them, alignment matters more than time. Resonance matters more than history. They don't maintain connections because of a beautiful past. They maintain them because the present still feels right. And when that disappears, so do they. Not because they don't appreciate it, but because they refuse to pretend. And if you connect all the dots, you'll see something clearly. This isn't coldness. This is honesty. Honesty with themselves, and honesty with what no longer fits. So don't be quick to assume that someone leaving means they didn't care. They didn't disappear because they felt nothing. They disappeared because they couldn't pretend anymore. Not every relationship is meant to last. Not everything that lasts still belongs. Sometimes leaving is the most honest thing you can do. Honest to who you are now. And maybe that's the hardest thing a person can do. So here's the question for you. Are you holding on to a relationship because it still fits, or just because it's been there for too long? If you enjoy videos like this, subscribe